Saint Nocturne University. Book 3. Chapter 2. 6 hours before midnight, Saint Nocturne did what it always did when faced with a world-ending ethical dilemma. It split into sides. Not clean sides. Clean would have been easier. By 6:15 p.m., the dining hall meeting had dissolved into 7 different hallway arguments, 3 emergency caucuses, 2 crying circles, 1 near fight between a blood court law student and a root circle archivist, and a deeply unfortunate group chat called Hard Options discussion that gained 412 members in 8 minutes and immediately became unusable. The 3 choices sat on every phone. 1. Appoint a liaison. 2. Reinstate a modified founder pact. 3. Open the heart chamber and release all bound histories to their living claimants. Nobody wanted the first option. Some people pretended to consider it because they wanted a person to blame if everything went wrong. Nobody admitted they wanted the second option. Some people dressed it up as stability, transition planning, controlled restructuring, or maybe the old system just needed consent language. Everybody had feelings about the third. That was the one tearing the campus open. Release everything. Every sealed memory. Every erased student. Every hidden family line. Every archived complaint. Every donor contract. Every dead witness. Every room the school moved. Every child renamed. It sounded like justice until people imagined receiving a memory they had survived by not having. It sounded like danger until people remembered someone else might still be living inside a lie built for their comfort. In the hallway outside the dining hall, Nia Bellamy stood beside a vending machine that had started offering only bottled water and spiritual warnings. The little screen blinked. Hydrate before ethical collapse. Nia stared at the 3 options on her phone. Brielle Laurent stood a few feet away, pretending not to watch her. Juno Price sat on the floor under the bulletin board, knees pulled up, face steady but eyes restless. A flyer for an upcoming student talent show hung crooked above their head. Someone had crossed out talent show and written consent-based expression event. Someone else had written under that, "Please let one thing be fun." Brielle finally spoke. "You don't have to say what you think." Nia looked up. Brielle immediately regretted the sentence. It sounded like permission, and permission from her still felt wrong in this shape. She corrected herself. "I mean, I'm not asking." Nia's expression softened with exhaustion, not warmth. "I know." Juno looked between them. "For what it's worth, I don't know what I think either." Brielle leaned against the opposite wall. "I hate option 3. Nia's eyes sharpened. Brielle lifted both hands slightly. "Not because I think things should stay buried. I know what it feels like to have something posted before you have language for it. Release to living claimants sounds clean, but what if the claimant isn't ready? What if the memory lands in somebody during a panic attack? What if somebody gets a file that names their parent, their professor, their best friend?" Juno added quietly, "What if someone gets a face they forgot wearing theirs?" Nia looked down at her phone again. For a moment, her fingers trembled around it. "My memory was taken," she said. "I wanted it back." Brielle and Juno stayed quiet. Nia continued, "But the night it started coming back, it almost broke me in the dining hall. Not because truth was bad. Because it came without my choice. In front of everyone. With people staring." She looked toward the dining hall doors. "I don't want Saint Nocturne deciding when anyone gets their truth back, even if it calls that release." Brielle nodded slowly. "So not option 3. Nia's mouth tightened. No. Maybe option 3, but not like that. Juno frowned. Can we change the options? Brielle laughed once. The paper said choose by midnight. The paper was Dean Nightingale. He is not exactly a neutral survey administrator. Nia looked at Juno. That was the first useful thing anyone had said in 5 minutes. Brielle's eyes brightened. Wait. Juno sat up. What? Brielle pulled out her phone and opened the Aftershade app. Nia immediately said, "Don't engage. I'm not posting." Brielle scrolled through the text. Aftershade said midnight vote coming. Nightingale's paper said choose by midnight. But neither said we had to choose one of his exact versions. Juno stood. We make a fourth option. Brielle looked at Nia. Nia's face was still cautious, but something had shifted. Not release everything, Nia said. Return control. Brielle pointed at her. Say that again. Nia lifted her chin. Return control. Every bound history gets identified, but not exposed. Living claimants get notified privately that something exists. They choose when, where, with whom, and whether to receive it. If the record involves harm to others, it goes into protected review with survivor consent structures. Juno added, dead witnesses. Miles chose to speak, Brielle said. Other dead witnesses should have representation too. Mediums, family, archive guardians, not automatic public release. Juno's face sharpened. And for renamed children. Nia looked toward the quad, where Aya stood with Zora near the fountain, both silent in different directions. Private notification, Nia said. Not public reveal. Brielle typed fast. Juno looked over her shoulder. Are you making policy in the Notes app? Don't disrespect the Notes app, half the revolution is in here. Nia almost smiled. Then Aftershade pinged. The app opened by itself. Valeborn Corner is drafting a fourth option. Adorable. Question, who gets to control truth when truth also belongs to someone else? Brielle froze. Juno looked around the hallway. No one obvious was close enough to have heard them. Brielle lowered her voice. It's listening through the phones. Nia took one slow breath. Then she walked to the vending machine, bought 3 bottles of water, and handed one to Brielle and one to Juno. Brielle stared. Now. Hydrate before ethical collapse. Juno accepted the bottle. The machine was right. Nia looked at the Aftershade post. We answer offline, she said. Brielle nodded. Offline, she repeated, then looked at her phone with disgust. I miss when my biggest problem was fake friends and bad lighting. Juno twisted off the cap. You still have those? Brielle looked at them. Juno shrugged. I'm helping by preserving continuity. Down the hall, 7 Monroe and Delphine Hart had taken over an empty classroom with 3 chalkboards, 2 candles, and the kind of academic intensity that made passing students slow down just to see if romance or murder was occurring. The answer remained unclear. 7 stood at the first board, writing possible Hart outcomes under the heading. Do not let Nightingale frame the premise. Delphine stood at the second board, rewriting everything he wrote into cleaner categories. At the third board, Micah Reed sat on the teacher's desk eating chips and drawing unhelpful diagrams shaped like skulls, hearts, and one suspiciously accurate caricature of Professor Graves. 7 pointed at the list. Option 1 is obviously bad. Liaison equals human interface equals soft door equals living infrastructure. Delphine nodded. Agreed. Micah raised a chip. Also unpaid emotional labor. 7 wrote that under option 1. Delphine crossed it out and rewrote. Exploitative singular burden. Micah frowned. Mine had flavor. It had imprecision. You have no joy. I have standards. 7 continued. Option 2 is old packed with consent language. That's just oppression with a consent checkbox. Delphine wrote. Coercive system preservation through procedural modernization. 7 stared. That is exactly what I said, but wearing a blazer. It will survive minutes. Micah munched loudly. Both boring. Both correct. 7 moved to option 3. Open the heart chamber and release all bound histories. Delphine's hand slowed. That is the complicated one. It sounds good, 7 said. It sounds catastrophic. It also sounds necessary. It can be both. 7 looked at her. Delphine was not wrong. That was becoming irritating. She tapped the chalk against the board. Information has relational claims. A memory may belong to one person, but evidence inside it may belong to someone harmed by the same system. A family history may be private, but if it identifies a living person whose name was stolen, the right to know may supersede someone else's comfort. 7 nodded slowly. And if the heart releases everything at once, it can turn restoration into assault. Correct. Michael lifted his hand. As the only person here not flirting with moral philosophy, can I ask why we are accepting 3 options from a vampire dean currently digested by a chapel? 7 and Delphine both turned. Michael looked between them. What? I listen while snacking. 7 lowered the chalk. 4th option. Delphine's eyes sharpened. We need one. Michael leaned back. Great. Make it less boring than the first 3. Delphine turned to the board and wrote. Option 4, claimant-controlled restoration with harm review. 7 felt the phrase click into place. Yes. Micah squinted. Still boring, but less evil. 7 began pacing. Every bound history gets indexed but not exposed. Claimants privately notified. Records involving direct harm routed to protected boards. No public disclosure without consent of affected parties unless there is ongoing danger. Delphine added, dead witness protocols. Ghost, ancestor, estate, or community representative. Micah said, add anti-hoarding measures. Otherwise old families claim privacy to bury crimes. Delphine looked at him, surprised. He shrugged. Charm customers talk. Rich people hide everything under family matter. 7 wrote it down. Privacy cannot shield institutional harm. Delphine nodded once. Good. Micah smiled. Frame it. The classroom door opened. Professor Graves stepped in. All 3 went silent in the guilty way of students who had absolutely been doing something useful without permission. Graves looked at the boards. Then at 7. Then at Delphine. Then at Micah. Who authorized this? 7 opened his mouth. Delphine answered. No one. Graves looked at the board again. Excellent. She walked to the front, picked up a piece of chalk, and added one line beneath option 4. No restoration process may be administered by any single faction, family, donor body, or university office without external community oversight. 7 read it. Then looked at her. Professor Graves did not meet his eyes at first. Miles' thesis argued for distributed witness structures, she said. I rejected the work publicly and used the framework privately to alter the pact. The room chilled. Delphine said, carefully, that is another confession. Yes. Seven's voice was tight. You used his work. Graves closed her eyes. Yes. The word sat there. Not enough. But there. Seven looked at Miles' thesis on the desk. He had carried it with him from the review room. Not for display. For weight. You need to say that tonight, he said. Professor Graves opened her eyes. I know. No, Seven said, voice shaking now. Not in a closed faculty review. Not in a footnote. Not after someone else finds it. You need to say his name and what you took. Delphine went still. Micah stopped eating. Professor Graves looked at Seven, and for once, there was no professor left in her face. Only a woman who had lived too long beside a choice. You are right, she said. Seven looked away first because the answer hurt more than resistance would have. Aftershade appeared on the classroom projector. Root circle update, Professor Graves admits to using dead students' framework. Question, is a confession still accountability if it arrives after the ghost does? Micah threw the chip bag at the projector. It bounced off. Delphine sighed, lifted her hand, and snapped the projector off with a clean spell. Offline, she said. Seven looked at her. She lifted the chalk. We continue. At Blood Contract Review, Malik had developed a new hatred for old legal language. He had hated it before, in the casual way people hate things that inconvenience them. Now he hated it with purpose. The table was covered in contracts, highlighters, plain language summaries, emergency void requests, and 3 separate piles labeled. Clearly coercive. Probably coercive. Whoever wrote this should be bitten by policy. Serafina had named the 3rd pile. Celia approved silently. A vampire freshman sat across from them with her arms wrapped around herself. My parents say if the heart releases all bound histories, my donor contract could become public, she said. Malik leaned forward. Do you want it public? No. Then it should not be public. But it proves they pressured me. Serafina lifted a form. Then it can go to protected evidence review. Your identity sealed unless you choose otherwise. The freshman looked uncertain. Will that still count? Celia answered. Yes. The girl looked at her. Celia St. Crown was not a comforting person. She did not glow with warmth or speak in soft circles. But she spoke like a woman who knew how systems worked because she had benefited from them, and right now that made her useful. If any board refuses sealed evidence because they prefer spectacle, Celia said, send them to me. The freshman nodded slowly and signed the routing form. When she left, Malik looked at his mother. You're good at sounding terrifying in service of decent things. Celia kept sorting papers. Power does not become useless because one finally points it somewhere less shameful. Serafina looked at her. That sounds like something you practiced. Celia's mouth twitched. I am trying not to become sentimental. Good luck, Malik said. Celia looked at him. Do not push me. His phone buzzed. Aftershade. He did not open it. Serafina's buzzed too. She did not open hers either. Celia's phone lit on the table. The post appeared across all 3 screens anyway. Blood court question, if option 4 protects private records, how many families will hide behind survivor language to avoid public accountability? Ask Celia St. Crown how many contracts she called private before her son called them ownership. Celia stared at the screen. Malik's first instinct was to defend her. That was new enough to irritate him. He held it back. Celia turned her phone face down. Then addressed the table, not the app. It is a valid concern. Serafina blinked. You're agreeing with Aftershade. I am refusing to let a malicious platform own a good question. Malik sat back. Celia continued, Option 4 must distinguish between privacy for harmed individuals and secrecy for powerful institutions. Family embarrassment is not protected harm. Survivor safety is. Serafina wrote it down immediately. Malik nodded slowly. Privacy is not a shield for institutional harm, he said. Serafina looked at him. Root Circle already has that language. How do you know? She held up her phone. A group chat titled Fourth Option Draft / No Foolishness had appeared. Members, Brielle, Nia, Juno, Lila, Dre, Seven, Delphine, Zora, Aya, Nasir, Imani, Malik, Serafina, Professor Graves, Maxine, Mama Odessa, Marva, Celia, Dr. Amari, Ms. Renee. Malik stared. Who made this? Serafina scrolled. Dre. Malik looked impressed. He named it No Foolishness. No. That was Talia. A new message appeared from Kiki. Why am I not in this group? Then. NVM I am now. First of all, this name is hostile. A second later, Dre added. No jokes until Section 3 is drafted. Kiki responded. You cannot govern joy. Dre. Watch me. At the Hull House temporary office, which was really the athletics equipment room with the helmets pushed aside, Imani read the group chat while Marva Cross, Taj, Rome, Kiki, and 3 Hull House students sorted old roll restoration forms. The smell of turf, sweat, old leather, and copy paper made the room feel like a locker room had swallowed a courthouse. On the wall, someone had taped. Names belong to people. Under it, in Kiki's handwriting. Spell it right or start over. Rome sat at a table checking his own restored record with his mother on speakerphone. Yes, Ma, I'm reading it. A pause. No, I'm not signing anything without Ms. Marva. A pause. Ma, I know you don't like her tone. Marva looked up. Rome quickly added, No, I agree it's protective. Kiki covered her mouth. Taj sat beside Rome, carefully comparing the compromised role access list with the restored names. Every time he found a name he had put at risk, he wrote it by hand onto a restitution sheet. His handwriting had gotten worse after the first 30. Imani watched him from across the table. Not with sympathy. With witness. Aftershade pinged on the equipment room TV. Hull House question, can restitution be trusted when it is performed under supervision? Asked Taj Cross if he would still be writing names if everyone stopped watching. Taj's pen stopped. The room tightened. Kiki reached for the remote. Marva said, wait. Everyone looked at her. Taj stared at the screen. Then put the pen down. Imani waited. Taj stood. His voice was rough. I don't know. Rome looked up. Taj swallowed. I want to say yes because it sounds good. But I liked being seen. I liked being important. I liked when older men told me I was built for leadership. I liked it so much I stopped asking why they needed me. The TV flickered. He continued, not looking at the screen now. So I don't know yet what I would do if nobody watched. That's why I need supervision. Not forever because I'm helpless. For now because trust shouldn't depend on me feeling noble. Marva nodded slowly. Imani exhaled. The aftershade post vanished. Rome looked at Taj. Can I ask something? Taj nodded. Did you see my name before the gate? Taj's face changed. Yes. Rome's mother went quiet on speaker. Rome's voice shook. And you still didn't stop? Taj looked down. Yes. That yes hurt the whole room. Rome nodded once, tears bright in his eyes. Okay, he said. Kiki rubbed his back. Taj sat down again, but he did not touch the pen. Imani looked at him. You still write? He nodded. I know. Rome said, not my sheet first. Taj looked up. Rome wiped his face. Do everybody else. Mine last. Taj's voice almost broke. Okay. Marvel looked at Rome with pride so fierce it could have cut glass. Imani looked at the group chat and typed. Restitution needs witness, not spectacle. Add to option 4. Kiki leaned over. Add snacks. Imani did not. At the chapel steps, Zora and Aya had become a rumor without moving. People kept looking at them, then pretending they had not. The Baptiste sisters. The root anchor and the lost operative. The target and the weapon. The family reunion nobody knew how to caption because the shade room below was gone and aftershade was too dangerous to trust with jokes. Zora sat on the lower step with her elbows on her knees, reading the group chat draft. Aya stood near the railing, arms folded, eyes on the chapel doors. Nasir sat between them, which was either mediation or self-punishment. Maxine had come and gone twice, each time bringing tea, saying almost nothing, and leaving before her love turned into pressure. Zora appreciated that. She hated that she appreciated it. The group chat had grown into a living document. Option 4 now had sections. Private notification. Claimant consent. Harm review. Dead witness protocol. Anti-hoarding measures. Faction oversight. Staff and labor records. Family history protections. Public accountability thresholds. No single liaison. No modified founder pact. No forced memory return. No sealed institutional harm. Zora read that last line twice. No sealed institutional harm. It sounded good. It also sounded like a door that could swing too far and hit everyone. Aya spoke without turning around. You're thinking about our mother. Zora did not answer. Nasir glanced at her. Zora said, aftershade posted her memory seal was voluntary. Aya's shoulders tightened. Nasir looked down. Zora continued, if option 4 passes, does she get notified? Yes, Aya said. If she doesn't want it opened, then it stays closed unless it contains evidence of ongoing harm to someone else. Zora looked at her. You memorized that fast. I lived in contract language. You lived in captivity. Aya turned. Both. They held each other's gaze. Zora looked away first. She never told me about you, she said. Aya's face tightened. I know. She let me think I was an only child. I know. Maybe she sealed it because she couldn't survive knowing. Aya sat on the step above Zora. Maybe. Zora hated the maybe. Maybe was where anger went when it could not find a clean chair. Nasir spoke quietly. My guardian used to say my mother died before naming me. Aya looked at him. Zora turned too. He kept his eyes on the cracked stone beneath his shoes. When the records returned, I found out she did name me. The name was sealed because Voss and Nightingale wanted the right to decide what I was called in official bloodline documents. Zora's anger shifted toward him now, not at him. What did she name you? Nasir was quiet for a long time. Nasir, he said finally. Aya's eyes filled. Zora closed hers. The name he had been using was not the lie. That mattered. Nasir continued, they kept it because changing it would have exposed the seal. But they let me think even my name was administrative. I reached for his hand, then stopped. He saw. After a second, he offered his hand instead. She took it. Zora watched. The old jealousy did not vanish. But it made room. Zora's phone buzzed. A direct message from Lila. Can you review family history protections section? Need Baptiste perspective. Only if you want. Zora stared at the message. Only if you want. The words still felt suspicious. She typed. Send. I'll review. Not decide alone. Lila responded. Good. Aya too? Zora looked at Aya. Lila wants family protections reviewed. Aya nodded. Send it. Zora forwarded the section. For 10 minutes, the three of them edited. Not dramatically. Not magically. Just hunched over phones on the chapel steps, arguing over wording while the heart beat beneath them at 60%. Aya changed next of kin to chosen claimant or legally recognized kin where safe. Nasir added names may not be altered for institutional clarity. Zora added a family's desire to avoid discomfort does not override a person's right to know they were erased. Aya looked at that line for a long moment. Then approved it. At 8:30 p.m., the first full draft of option 4 circulated. At 8:41, aftershade posted. Fourth option draft leaked. Claimant-controlled restoration sounds queued. Question, who decides who counts as harmed? No one responded through the app. Instead, the group chat lit up. Nia. Define harmed parties broadly. Direct harm, record subject, named witnesses, affected descendants where records involve erased lineage. Dre. Staff 2. Labor records include families impacted by exposure events. Marva. PAC names require living person consent. For dead names, family, or chosen PAC witness. No elder-only claims. Mama Odessa. Dead performers get stage witness. Not university witness. Celia. Institutional actors cannot claim privacy as harmed parties to block review. Serafina. Add family offices, trusts, donor entities under institutional actors. Brielle. Add vocal/image/face sample use as harm category. Juno. And impersonation records. 7. Add stolen intellectual/spiritual work. Delphine. With authorship restoration and compensation pathways. Professor Graves. Add faculty use of student work. 7 did not reply to that. Then, after a minute. Yes. Zora watched the messages roll in. Messy people, riding guardrails. It should have looked ridiculous. It did. It also looked like something the heart could not easily swallow because no one person got to be the bridge. At 9:15, the campus held open forums in 4 locations. Students could speak, refuse to speak, submit written concerns, or sit silently as witness. Lila insisted the forums not be live-streamed. Brielle insisted aftershade screenshots be banned. Dre insisted every room have staff representation and water. Kiki insisted snacks. No one fought the snacks. In the Valeborn studio, a student said they feared option 4 would still pressure survivors to open records. Nia answered, then the default is notification without opening. Silence protected. Refusal protected. Change of mind protected. In the Root Circle chamber, a scholarship student said option 4 could let rich families bury stolen spells under privacy. Delphine answered, not if the work entered institutional archive, publication, curriculum, profit, or disciplinary record. Then harm review applies. 7 added, and restitution includes money. Delphine glanced at him. He shrugged. Authorship is nice. Rent is real. At Blood Contract Review, a vampire parent argued that family contracts were private tradition. Celia looked at him and said, then tradition should survive plain language. The parent left. At Howell House, Rome asked if restored names could be refused. Marva answered, yes. A name offered back is still not a name forced. Taj wrote that down. At staff operations, Ms. Renee told a room full of workers that labor records would not be released to students, faculty, or donors without staff consent, but patterns of harm could be used for institutional accountability. A custodian asked, does that include the ghost mop incident of 2008? Ms. Renee sighed. Yes, Leonard. It includes the ghost mop. At 10:30, the draft became a proposal. At 10:45, the proposal became a vote. Not through aftershade. Not through campus polling. Paper ballots, spell verified but content private. Staff and students counted together. Faction observers watched each other watching. Saint Nocturne hated it. The lights flickered the entire time. At 11:12, the results were ready. Founders Auditorium filled again, though nobody sat where they had before. Too much had happened to return to old seating arrangements. Blood Court students mixed near the aisles. Root Circle divided less cleanly than usual. Howell House spread protectively around first years and hidden line students. Valeborn clustered near the exits by choice, not fear. Staff sat front center. Professor Graves stood at the podium. Ms. Renee stood beside her. That mattered more than the podium did. Lila held the sealed result envelope. Dre held the duplicate count. Brielle stood near Nia and Juno. Zora stood with Aya, Nasir, Maxine, 7, and Talia near the left aisle. Malik stood with Serafina and Celia. Imani stood with Kiki, Taj, Rome, and Marva. Every phone in the auditorium buzzed at once. Aftershade posted. Midnight vote begins soon. The app will accept student will. Choose, liaison, pact, release. Brielle walked onto the stage without asking. Professor Graves stepped back. Brielle held up her phone. No. The auditorium went silent. Brielle's voice carried without magic. We already voted. Not through you. Aftershade glitched. The 3 options on every phone flickered. Then a 4th appeared, uninvited by the app but carried by every private ballot, every witness signature, every consent routing form, every offline forum, every room that had refused to let the platform become the audience. For claimant-controlled restoration/collective oversight. Aftershade pulsed black. Invalid option. Nia stepped onto the stage. It is valid because we chose it. Juno joined her. So did the people whose faces, voices, names, work, memories, and records are at stake. Lila opened the result envelope. Dre lifted the duplicate count. Ms. Renee read aloud. Option 4 passes with 74% student approval, 81% staff approval, 62% faculty approval, and community oversight acceptance pending market, Howell, Vale, and Blood Court review bodies. Kiki shouted, 62% faculty is a D. Professor Graves said dryly, a passing D, apparently. The auditorium laughed. Not because it was over. Because they needed 1 second. The laughter died when the chapel bell rang. Once. Twice. 11 times. Then midnight began early. The auditorium lights went out. Every phone screen turned black. Aftershade vanished. The air pressure dropped so fast people gasped. From beneath the campus, the heartbeat. 60%. 58. 49. 32. Professor Graves grabbed the podium. The heart is destabilizing. Maxine shouted, because we rejected the options. No, 7 said, staring at the screens. Because option 4 requires opening without feeding it control. Delphine's voice sharpened. Then it needs a structure. We gave it one. On paper. The floor beneath the auditorium cracked. Red light seeped through. Aya grabbed Zora's hand. Nasir grabbed the back of a seat. Brielle shouted, what does it need? The answer came from every speaker. Dean Nightingale's voice. Witness. The auditorium doors opened by themselves. Outside, the path to the chapel glowed red. The heart was not calling one liaison now. It was calling the proposal's authors. The students looked at one another. No one wanted to go. Which, at Saint Nocturne, was usually how they knew they had to. They walked to the chapel in a crowd. Not everyone. Representatives, witnesses, claimants, skeptics, harmed people, people who had harmed, people who were both, and people carrying clipboards because Dre insisted witness without documentation was just vibes. At the chapel steps, the doors stood open. This time, no one was dragged. That was new. Inside, the chapel had changed. The pews were gone. The altar was gone. The floor was open, revealing the staircase to the heart chamber below. Red light pulsed from beneath. Professor Graves stepped forward. Maxine caught her arm. Graves looked at her. Maxine said, not first. Graves understood. She stepped back. Zora looked at Aya. Aya looked at Nasir. Nasir looked at the staircase. Then Nia stepped forward. Everyone turned. She lifted her chin. I am not going first as a symbol, she said. I am going because if this is about consent, someone whose choice was taken should be in the room when the new structure starts. Brielle's eyes filled. Juno said, then not alone. Dre lifted his clipboard. Witness. Lila lifted no recorder. Witness, she said. One by one, they followed. Down the stairs. Into the heart chamber. The chamber was not what Zora expected. It was not a monster. That almost made it worse. It was a vast circular room beneath the chapel, walls made of dark stone, roots, old brick, and thousands of embedded objects, keys, rings, contracts, name tags, hair beads, thesis pages, broken mirrors, student IDs, performance programs, feeding agreements, protest flyers, dorm keys, faculty pins, newspaper clippings, baby bracelets, staff badges, and little pieces of lives the school had swallowed and called archive. At the center floated the heart. Not flesh. Not machine. A red sphere of light wrapped in black roots and silver paper. Inside it, shadows moved. Dean Nightingale's shape was visible within. Not whole. Not free. His eyes opened when they entered. "So," he said. "You came as a committee." Kiki whispered, "He says committee like a slur." Ms. Renee said, "It is when men like him say it." The heart pulsed. A table rose from the floor. Circular. No headseat. Around it appeared chairs. Not enough for everyone. That was the first test. Dre immediately said, "No." The heart paused. He pointed at the chairs. Enough seats or no meeting. For 1 second, the chamber was silent. Then more chairs rose. Kiki whispered, "Dre just bullied furniture." Lila whispered, "Staff operations." They sat. Not comfortably. Not peacefully. But together. Dean Nightingale's face moved inside the heart. "Claimant-controlled restoration," he said. "You believe this will starve the heart?" Zora answered before she could overthink it. "No. We believe it changes what feeds it." His eyes moved to her. She held his gaze. "We're not pretending secrets disappear. We're not pretending truth doesn't hurt. We're not pretending repair makes everyone good. But no more stolen secrets. No more forced spectacle. No more one person holding what belongs to many." Nia placed her memory orb on the table. "I claim control over my memory." Brielle placed her broken mic charm beside it. "I claim responsibility for the mouth I built and refuse to let it speak without consent." Juno placed the red card Camille had given them. "I claim my face." Dre placed his notepad. "I claim the record without turning people into inventory." Lila placed her recorder, still off. "I claim witness without extraction." Seven placed Miles' thesis. "I claim dead." Delphine placed a pearl pin. "I claim inherited harm." Imani placed a silver thread from the jacket. "I claim names without ownership." Taj placed the first restitution sheet he had written. "I claim the work after confession." Malik placed the voided bondholder clause. "I claim the harm in what I signed." Serafina placed the DuPont lien release copy. "I claim refusal as action, not branding." Aya placed the thorn crown ring. "I claim the name they buried under Aurelia crown." Nasir placed an old birthday coin Dean Nightingale had once given him. "I claim my life without becoming infrastructure." Maxine placed a red candle. "I claim what I hid." Professor Graves placed her signed copy of the original pact alteration. "I claim what I preserved and what I failed to prevent." Ms. Renee placed a staff badge. "I claim the workers the school used as witnesses without names." Mama Odessa placed one of her mirror earrings. "I claim performance without consumption." Marva placed a burned scrap of old pack roll. "I claim protection and the harm protection did." Zora had nothing in her hands. Then she realized she did. She pulled out the last thing that had not flown away from her secret collection. A tiny gold sun charm from Caleb's bracelet. It should have been gone. Apparently the heart had left her one final insult. She placed it on the table. "I claim the part of me that wanted leverage more than trust," she said. "And I don't give it to you." The heart shook. Dean Nightingale's face distorted. The table lit from beneath. Lines spread between the objects, but not red now. Gold. Silver. Violet. Green. Blue. Colors that belong to no single faction. The chamber walls groaned as embedded objects loosened. Not all at once. One by one. A staff badge slid free and vanished upward. A baby bracelet. A thesis page. A feeding contract. A stage program. A dorm key. A name tag. Each item rooted somewhere. Privately. Not exploding into the world. Not burying itself again. Returning. The heart shrank. Dean Nightingale's voice sharpened. You think distributed choice will survive hunger? Students are cruel. Families are selfish. Institutions reform themselves into new cages. Zora leaned forward. Probably. He blinked. She continued, we're not promising paradise. We're promising you don't get to be the excuse. The heart cracked. For the first time, Lucienne Nightingale looked afraid. Not of death. Of irrelevance. Aftershade appeared one last time on every phone in the room. Final poll. Do you consent to claimant-controlled restoration? Yes/no/abstain. No countdown. No threat. No caption. No jokes. One by one, they voted. Some yes. Some abstain. Nia abstained at first, then changed to yes when the system displayed. Abstention protected. Change of mind protected. That mattered. A few voted no. The system accepted it. That mattered too. The vote spread beyond the chamber to campus, then to staff, then to affected community representatives. Not a rushed midnight spectacle. A consent structure opening in phases, with opt-outs, delays, witness choices, and harm review. The heart did not die. It changed. The red sphere collapsed into a smaller light, no larger than a lantern, suspended above the round table. Dean Nightingale's shape faded inside it. Camille's voice suddenly rang from nowhere, furious. Lucienne. His face turned toward the sound. Then toward the students. His final expression was not regret. That would have been too neat. It was calculation interrupted. Then he vanished. The lantern heart glowed once. A system message appeared across the chamber wall. Heart chamber stabilized, 100%. Under it? No single liaison required. Then. Collective oversight active. Kiki stared. 100%? Okay, extra credit. 7 exhaled shakily. Don't say extra credit in front of Delphine. Delphine said, he would not qualify. Micah, who had somehow slipped into the chamber and had been sitting silently in the back eating chips the whole time, said, romantic. 7 and Delphine shouted, no. The chamber laughed. Even Zora. A little. Then the walls began to open. Not physically. Records loosening. Doors appearing. Some marked with names. Some with symbols. Some with warnings. On Zora's phone, the childhood record appeared again. Nadine Baptiste childhood record / access requires consent from both sisters. This time, below it, new options appeared. Open now. Schedule with witness. Delay. Decline for now. Zora looked at Aya. Aya looked back. They both chose. Delay. The file dimmed. Not gone. Waiting. Their choice. Nasir's phone buzzed too. He looked at it. His mother's records. He closed his eyes. Then chose. Schedule with witness. Aya touched his shoulder. He let her. Outside, the chapel bell rang once. Clear. Not threatening. Not hungry. Just sound. When they emerged from the chapel, dawn had not come yet, but the sky had softened. Students waited on the quad. Some cheered when the doors opened. Some just cried. Some asked immediately whether classes were cancelled tomorrow. The cheerful orientation voice came through the speakers. Good morning, Saint Nocturne community. Heart chamber stabilization complete. Classes remain cancelled pending emotional, structural, legal, magical, and culinary recovery. The quad cheered. The voice continued. Please note, emotional recovery is not a substitute for completing committee forms. The cheering stopped. Dre looked personally attacked. Lila smiled. Culinary recovery. Ms. Renee lifted her chin. Finally, respect. Then every phone buzzed. Aftershade opened. The black icon cracked down the middle. A final post appeared. Aftershade archived. Status, inactive. Reason, audience refused extraction model. Remember, any app can come back if people miss the feeling. The icon vanished. Brielle stared at her home screen. Okay, she said. That was rude but fair. Nia nodded. Very fair. Juno looked at Brielle. Do you miss it? Brielle thought about lying. Then did not. A little, she said. Nia looked at her. Brielle continued, not the harm. The rush. Knowing first. Being the place people looked. Juno nodded. Nia said, what do you do with that? Brielle looked across the quad at the Valeborn consent table, at the students waiting with forms, at the stage programs being returned, at Mama Odessa already yelling at someone about policy teeth. I find somewhere else to put my voice, she said. And make sure someone can tell me no. Nia held her gaze. Then nodded once. That was enough for the night. Near the fountain, Imani sat beside Taj and Rome. Taj had fallen asleep upright with the restitution clipboard in his lap. Rome looked at him and whispered, should we wake him? Imani said, no. Let him suffer neck pain. Kiki, lying dramatically across two chairs, said, restorative justice with posture consequences. Marva Cross, standing nearby, said, put that in the handbook. At blood contract review, Malik and Serafina sat on the steps of the alumni lounge, surrounded by folders. Serafina leaned her head back against the wall. My mother is going to sue everyone. Malik nodded. Mine might help. That is not comforting. No. A pause. Then he said, you called them your friends earlier. Serafina did not look at him. You heard that? Yes. Vampire hearing is invasive. It is. Another pause. She said, do not make it romantic. He smiled faintly. I am trying silently. Try harder. At Graves Hall, Seven stood before Miles Holloway's restored portrait. Delphine stood beside him. Neither spoke for a long time. Then Seven said, I don't know if I deserve to stay. Delphine looked at the portrait. Deserving is not the committee's question. What is? What repair requires? What harm demands? What Miles is owed? What you can contribute without pretending contribution erases theft. He sighed. That sounds terrible. It will be. He looked at her. You're not comforting. I was not attempting to. A beat. Then she added, but you should attend the hearing. Seven nodded. Yeah. And wear something less tragic. He looked down at his damp, wrinkled clothes. This outfit survived a readout, a ghost confrontation, a fountain, and a heart chamber. Exactly. He smiled. She looked away. Micah's voice came from behind a column. Romantic. Delphine threw a pearl pin at him. He dodged. At the chapel steps, Zora stood with Aya, Nasir, and Maxine. The heart was stable. Aftershade was gone. The records were waiting. Nothing was fixed. Everything had changed. Maxine looked at Zora. I'll call your mother, she said. Zora's throat tightened. Don't tell her everything before I do. Maxine nodded immediately. I won't. Aya looked toward the city beyond the gates. Will she want to see me? Maxine's face softened and broke at the same time. Yes, she said. And she will be terrified. Aya nodded. I can work with terrified. Zora looked at her sister. Can you? Aya's mouth twitched. No idea. Nasir looked at both of them. That seems to be the family answer. Zora almost laughed. Then the chapel doors closed behind them. Gently. No slam. No pulse. No red light. Just closed. Zora looked at the building. Then at the quad. Then at Aya. We delay the record, she said. Aya nodded. But we don't delay dinner, Zora added. I have not eaten since trauma pancakes. Aya blinked. Then laughed. Nasir said, I could eat. Maxine wiped her eyes. Dining hall is probably still open. Behind them, Talia appeared with her bat and a hoodie thrown over one shoulder. It is. But if anybody says trauma pancakes to me again, I'm transferring. Zora looked at her. You're not transferring. Talia shrugged. Probably not. I live in a haunted dorm with housing leverage now. Aya looked at the bat. Is that normal? Zora, Nasir, Maxine, and Talia all answered at once. No. Then, after a pause, Zora added. For Saint Nocturne, yes. They walked toward the dining hall together. Not healed. Not absolved. Not saved forever. But walking by choice. Above them, the Saint Nocturne banners lifted in the early morning wind. Blood Court. Howl House. Root Circle. Valeborn. And beneath them, new temporary signs had been taped to the lampposts by students with markers, spite, and no graphic design training. No single bridge. No secret pacts. No gossip demons without consent. Repair is not a performance. Classes still cancelled. Someone had added under that last one. For now. And because Saint Nocturne was still Saint Nocturne, 3 people had already started arguing about whether the final sign was a threat, a promise, or a syllabus.